About 2 years ago, in a month of July, 9 of my fellow Marines and I received jungle combat training in the Los Tuxtlas region of Veracruz. On that occasion, our unit was transported to a jungle area very close to the Los Tuxtlas Biosphere Reserve. The location sat between a lagoon called Majahual and the San Martín volcano, an area extremely difficult to access by land. There are no roads, not even dirt roads. So our unit was flown in by Sikorsky transport helicopters from the naval base in Veracruz to the training site. The exercise was simple to explain but hard to live through. We were trained for search and combat operations against criminal cells involved in drug trafficking in jungle zones, using only radio directions coming from an amphibious assault operations ship positioned along the coast near a beach called Punta Roca Partida. We were fully equipped for combat training, assault rifles, pistols, fragmentation grenades, along with all the tactical gear, optical equipment, electronic gear, night vision systems, and communications devices. On the first night, around 11 p.m., strange and impossible things began happening around our camp. Our floor-level motion sensors, and other sensors installed in the trees surrounding the camp, started recording errors and sending alerts about something, or someone, inside the camp's security perimeter. That perimeter was monitored by sensors, and it marked the farthest circular boundary around the main base camp. At the same time, we began to notice something that deeply unsettled us. The temperature dropped drastically. That was wrong for the jungle, and even more wrong for July. We also started smelling nauseating odors, like rotten eggs or a sewer, so strong it made it hard to breathe. We were confused because, according to the maps we had, there were no swamps or nearby lagoons where those gases could have come from. Majahual Lagoon was about 50 kilometers from our camp. There was almost no way for putrefaction gases to travel from there. While the night went on, my companions, Marines Sanchez and Hernandez, were responsible for guarding the camp during the first 3 hours, while the rest of us tried to rest. Sanchez looked extremely uneasy. He kept shining his rifle light into the trees, the undergrowth, and the ground around him, as Hernandez later told me. Around 1 a.m., Sanchez saw a shadow moving toward him. He didn't feel fear at first, until he realized it had no feet. Even though his rifle was loaded and ready, he didn't raise it against what his eyes were seeing. It was about the size of a person. It wasn't coming fast, and it wasn't moving slowly either. It approached directly toward me, and it did it without touching the ground. It was floating. Sanchez told me that about 10 meters before the shadow reached his position, he saw it jump, some 5 or 6 meters, up into the trees to disappear into the darkness. At the same time, Hernandez was watching another part of the camp when suddenly he started feeling rocks and branches being thrown from the surrounding vegetation. At first, he thought we were pranking him, but it wasn't us. Then fear hit him hard when, out of nowhere, he felt a violent impact that knocked him down. He tried to rise, but he couldn't. A force pinned him, keeping him pressed to the ground, unable to move. He wanted to scream, and he believed he did, but none of us heard him. Not even Sanchez, who was on guard at that hour. We all knew something was happening when we heard a loud impact followed by a gunshot. The sound woke us immediately, and we stood up with our rifles ready, because we thought armed criminals were setting an ambush. All we heard, and only briefly managed to see, was the flapping of a large shadow moving away between the trees. It looked like an enormous bird, at least that's what it seemed like to all of us. We ran to the sector where Hernandez was. He was still on the ground, not moving, with a wound on his face. We asked him what happened, and he told us that a shadow had attacked him and paralyzed him. With a tremendous effort, he said, he managed to activate his rifle and alert the rest of us so we could help him. We brought Hernandez into a tent so the medic among us could treat him. After the attack, we decided to stay awake, fully alert, in case there was another assault like the first, something we would have to respond to immediately. The paranormal activity had only begun. We took turns scanning the surroundings with night vision goggles. What we saw left us frozen. About 8 humanoid figures, at least they looked humanoid, surrounding the camp. What shocked me was that they seemed to be standing in place, staring straight toward us, with black eyes, as if they knew exactly where we were. Night vision, to be clear, allows you to see in very low light as if it were almost daytime. There was almost no moonlight. There was no way they could have known our position unless they had their own night vision or infrared technology. One of my companions ran to alert the unit commander that we were surrounded by unknown figures. Meanwhile, I and 2 others, because the intruders had penetrated the security perimeter where lethal force was authorized, opened fire. We emptied an entire magazine from our rifles at those silhouettes. We wanted to confirm that our shots hit, so we used night vision again to check where we had fired. We saw nothing, no silhouettes, no movement. It was as if they had disappeared. Thinking they had fled, we regrouped with the rest, when suddenly we heard other Marines over the radio calling for support. They were seeing shadows moving between the trees in a threatening way. We went immediately and confirmed it ourselves. Between the darkness, the trees moved as if someone were shaking them with an enormous amount of strength. We decided to group together in the center of the camp, staying close to face the threat as one unit. We began to feel intense terror, because what we were facing didn't feel like something we understood or knew how to fight. The shadows moving in the trees started emitting chilling screeches. That sound brought a wave of cold fear through us, and panic spread quickly. Through night vision, we counted around 20 humanoid silhouettes on the ground and up in the trees around us. They stared back at us with those terrifying black eyes. One of my companions started screaming that they were demons, that we had to get out of there. Then, suddenly, 2 of these entities moved extremely fast toward us. My companions and I didn't hesitate. We fired. I'm not exaggerating. We fired roughly 100 rounds at them. But the shots didn't stop them for long. The entities halted their movement briefly, then jumped up into the trees to regroup with the others that kept watching us. We were terrified and completely disoriented. We didn't know how to fight whatever this was, entities that seemed demonic, harassing and attacking us. We were surrounded in the jungle with nowhere to run. Only 2 options remained. Either resist the attack as best we could, or send an urgent radio request for support to the operations ship along the coast and request a helicopter to extract us immediately. I checked my watch. It was 4:30 a.m. If we could hold out for another hour, daylight would start, and we believed that those things would surely return to wherever they came from. They kept watching us with those demonic eyes, smiling grotesquely, and emitting horrible screeches that made even the bravest of us shiver. Then the radio operator, Corporal Ortiz, in a panic, requested helicopter support from the naval operations ship on the coast, about 100 kilometers away, but he received no response. It was as if electromagnetic interference was blocking the transmission. We realized we had no radio communications at all. We were cut off from our base. One of our Marines, someone with knowledge of Santeria and white magic, shouted to all of us that we had to cross the bullets. He told us to take knives, mark the cartridge casings with a cross, and then, at the moment we fired, shout as loudly as possible that God was with us, that we were not afraid of any demon. Our fear was so intense that we decided to try anything that might work. We quickly took our knives, crossed the bullets, loaded the ammunition back into our magazines, and prepared to shoot. When we were all ready, and at the commander's order, we fired simultaneously into the entities located in the trees. As we shot, we screamed that God was with us and that we weren't afraid, ordering them to leave. When we did, the branches of the trees and all the vegetation began moving violently, as if a massive wind were crashing into them. Then we saw those things start jumping from branch to branch, moving away from us until they vanished. The night returned to normal sounds and silence. Only after that did radio communications begin working again. Out of fear they might come back during the remaining hours of night, the unit leader reported by radio to the operations ship that the area wasn't safe. He said we'd been attacked by unidentified entities, and he urgently requested a helicopter to pick us up immediately and take us back to the operations ship. Our base replied that a helicopter would come for us as soon as morning arrived, because in the dark it was too dangerous for a helicopter and its crew to fly in that area. After what we experienced, all of us were physically and mentally disturbed. We had minor wounds, bruises, injuries to the skin, and our uniforms were torn. We all had a strong headache too. I still don't understand how those injuries and symptoms happened. The rest of the night, we stayed together under constant tension and anguish. Some of my companions began praying and invoking God's protection. When morning finally came, we felt grateful just to still be alive. We dismantled the camp quickly, almost running, and reached a clearing in the jungle to wait for the helicopter that would take us back to the ship. When we arrived, we reported everything that happened in the operations log. Our captain reviewed the report and told us we weren't the only group to report paranormal events during training in that area. He said other training teams had also reported being attacked by witches or nawalas. According to what he told us, it's attributed to the presence of many brujos and sorcerers in the region who practice black magic, and who use dark techniques to protect territories controlled by drug cartels and criminals operating in that part of Mexico. This kind of information, he said, is never made public. It's considered confidential, but it exists in the records of the Navy and other armed and security institutions in Mexico. To this day, I still haven't found a rational explanation for the terrifying events I lived through with my fellow Marines.